Hey, welcome to the podcast, YB. Long time.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, my friend. Thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to us having a great time today.
For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
Man, I'm a connector. The first thing that people know about me is that I'm a connector. In many circles, I'm known as the LinkedIn locksmith because of my ability to unlock the power of LinkedIn for my clients, who consist of business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals who want to enhance their network and net worth using LinkedIn.
That's what's up. And it's funny thinking about how I met you, but actually being able to sit down and have a conversation with you. I think to the originals of Breathe University connection with Eric Thomas. You got Patrick Pete, Shelly Shelton, now yourself, and it's an honor.
Well, Breathe University was a launching pad for several of us, and to see people grow from that, it lets us know that the promise that Breathe U promoted came into fulfillment. ET has always been about collaboration. He's always been about personal and professional development, business development, and those who were able to dig deep and grab the principles and apply the principles, they're getting the benefits of that. And so, some jumped out faster than others, and some like myself, it take a little bit, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
the reality is that the principles of success that E and CJ and all of those folks taught us, they're allowing it to manifest today. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to stay connected. I mean, you think about it. I came into the Breathe U community in 2016,
Mm.
right? We're now in 2023,
Yeah.
and how Breathe U has morphed, right, into a
Mhm.
different community. The people that were in that community initially, we made a decision to remain connected, whether we're still a part of the coaching community or not. It's just that those relationships transcended the community, and this is one of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess not to skip over them because we're really here to highlight you, but of course we can't forget Rochelle T. Parks, and you've got Carla Broadno,
Mhm.
Ogletree,
Marshall
and
Fox, and you've
Marshall
got
Fox. So
Wanda
many.
Tunga, you've got so many. I mean, so many people that
Yeah,
that are like shining, and there's so many more to name, so
yeah.
many. I mean, you talk about Pierre
Go.
Evans, right? So like
Yeah, yeah.
Pierre, when I first got introduced to ET and watched the videos on YouTube, at the end of the video they would have a testimonial, and I remember always seeing that video of Pierre, and I said, you
Mm,
know what? If this guy could do it, I know I could do it. And
mm,
to be able to not only meet him, but befriend him and to host him in Richmond. He even stayed at my home,
mm.
as of recent, was helping my wife to acquire a new vehicle because his background is car sales. I
Yeah.
mean, we were not just in a community; we became family, and that's the most important thing for me.
Right, right. And you're not promoting the next Fast and Furious movie. That's for real,
Oh,
for real.
yeah, absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, any of those things, like it's funny. My new promotion outside of my business is a show that comes on Netflix called Suits.
Mm,
Right. For those of you, who are listening that don't know about Suits, you should definitely go check out Netflix. But Suits is a show about a guy who gets hired as an attorney but doesn't have credentials, right? That's all I'm going to say. But
mm.
it's like several adventures that build out as a result of that. And I would say the reason why I like the show, number one, is because the gentlemen, they dress up, right? And
Mhm.
that's why they call it suits, right? They're lawyers. They dress up, and I come from a background where I grew up going to Catholic school,
Mhm.
and we would have to wear shirt and tie and sweaters and suits and things of that nature. And at first I hated it, but when I graduated from high school, I started to love it because it allowed me to stand out. And
Mhm.
so the fact that these men are just dressed sharp to the nines is impressive, but also just how they communicate with one another,
Yeah.
right? What I've noticed, being an African American male, we communicate differently than our counterparts.
Mhm.
So watching the show, even though it's a fictitious show, it gives some highlights on human behavior and how people interact and how people communicate, which is helpful for me as I continue to enter into different circles and identify ways to add value to those business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals.
Yeah, that's what's up. And something I gathered from you and from Pierre is just the way you're able to observe people and pull out those principles and be like, okay, how can I apply this? But take me back, if you would. How did you get started? Kind of like, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like, kind of growing up before you became like YBConnects?
Yeah, absolutely. I love telling that part of my story. So I'm a native of the Bronx, New York. I grew up in a single parent home. My mother and I were, we rocked real hard together because my father was actually murdered when I was 2. And when I say that, I don't say that to get any sympathy, but to make people aware that if you are listening and you grew up with adversity or you grew up with trauma, there's an opportunity for you to overcome that adversity and to overcome that trauma. When people say, man, that's terrible, your father died, I said, well, I could have been a totally different person if he were alive. But his spirit, his entrepreneurial spirit, somehow got to me through my mom. My father was a street pharmacist, if you know what I mean. And so, while I never went in that direction, I did sell dietary supplements, right? So that's the closest I got to some type of substance, right? But as a result of growing up without my father, I had this a hole in my soul, right? I felt like, when I would look in the mirror, I couldn't really see myself. That lack of identity, that lack of connection. While I had a connection to his side of the family, I really didn't know who he was, and therefore there was a part of me that I did not know. But thank God my mom put me in environments where other strong men stood in the gap. They were able to mentor me and coach me and help me along the way to become the man that I am today. And so I use those examples to empower, inspire, and impact people. I transitioned from Bronx, New York in 1996 to go to Virginia Union University, where I earned a degree in business administration. My concentration was in finance and economics. I do nothing with that degree at all, other than focus on generating finances for my business and working on my economy, right?
Right.
However, I did gain great amounts of assets while I was in school. As a matter of fact, there were 3 assets that I was able to accumulate in my 8-year journey. Right. Yeah, it took me 8 years to finish a 4-year degree. And I didn't leave out there with a master's, right? But there were 3 assets that I was able to obtain while going to school. The first one was my personal relationships. You asked me about, how did I become YB, or what happened before I became YBConnects? Well, when my first semester in college, this is August of 1996, like we're approaching, almost 27, 28 years, right? I met a young lady from Lynchburg, Virginia. Her name was Tabitha. And when I introduced myself, she didn't believe that my last name was YoungBlood.
Right.
She literally carded me, right? She's like, no, I don't believe your last name is YoungBlood. Let me see your ID. So I showed her my ID. She still didn't believe me. So she decided that she was going to alter my life and alter my future by calling me YB. She was the very first person to call me YB. And so, my new image developed freshman year of college, and I went on and grew and developed. But those personal relationships was a tremendous asset, because those relationships opened up the door for me and allowed for me to open up doors for others. So that was the first asset. The second asset was my personal growth. I grew up, once again, without my father, but I was able to build relationships with other people that allowed me to be different from the first day I started on campus to the last day that I wrapped up on campus. And so those personal moments, those moments of growth, allow for me to learn how best to treat people, how best to relate to people, and how best to empower people. So the second asset was personal development. And then third was professional development, right? Was the opportunity to get involved in organizations like Inroads, which enhanced my community and corporate leadership and my ability to communicate, getting involved in my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the greatest fraternity in the world, to be able to meet and network with other professionals and focus on service and to be active with my alumni association. So all of those pieces, all of those experiences help to develop me as a professional and allow for me to attract opportunities beyond undergraduate school. So I talk about those three assets and how they've applied to me. And while most people chase after money, I focus on those three assets, and it has helped me to become the person that I am today.
I like that. I love how you gave me those three things, because that's something I can come back to easily. And why did you decide on Virginia, like moving from New York to go to college in Virginia?
Yeah, that was by accident. That that wasn't in the plans for me. As a matter of fact, I didn't know what the plans were. I was first generation college student. My
Mm,
mom didn't go to college, my father didn't go to college, my grandparents didn't go to college. So I was first generation. But thank God for the men of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, who out of Harlem, who put together a phenomenal Black college tour. They
mm.
had been doing it for years prior to the year that I went in 1996.
Yeah.
And in 1996, we visited 11 schools in 7 days. We started in Greensboro. We worked our way all the way up through North Carolina, Virginia, and wrapped up in Maryland at Morgan State University. But when we got to Virginia Union, which was like midway through the week,
Mhm.
we had an opportunity to listen to the presentation done by the excuse me, not the administration, but the admissions team.
Mhm.
And I was half asleep. We were tired, man. We were doing all this walking. We dressed up in suits, man. Like,
Right.
we were tired. But the moment Rudy Randall, I still remember his name. The moment Rudolph Randall mentioned the requirements for the presidential scholarship, I woke up.
Mm.
He said that all you needed was 1,000 on the SATs and an 89 grade point average. Well, I had a 1050,
Mm.
so I'm like, I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
My GPA was like an 86, 86.5 or something like that. So I still had some more selling to do. My sales career started at that moment because I began to follow up and ask them what would it take for me to become a presidential scholar. I mean, I knew what it would take, but I wanted to let them know that I
Yeah.
was interested in being a presidential scholar. And so, several weeks went by after that tour. This was February of 96. Several weeks went by, and I received 2 letters in the mail.
Mm.
One was my acceptance into Virginia Union. The second was that I was awarded the presidential scholarship at Virginia Union University, which covered all expenses, which was a tremendous blessing because my mom, saved up a few dollars, but didn't really
Yeah.
have the money for me to go to school. And so that altered my decision to transition from Bronx, New York to Richmond, Virginia. Like I said, I didn't even have Virginia Union on my radar. I didn't even know Virginia Union existed.
Mhm.
The HBCUs I knew about was Morehouse and Spelman because I watched Boys in the Hood and Trey went to Morehouse and his girlfriend went to Spelman, right? So that's I mean, I may have knew about Howard, but I knew about Morehouse and I knew about Spelman. So thank
Yeah.
God for that college tour, because had it not been for that experience, I may have remained home. I did get accepted to a college in Rhode Island called Providence College.
Mhm.
They awarded me a $7,500 scholarship, Martin Luther King scholarship, and I was like, "Well, what's $7,500 going to do if the
Mm.
bill is 25,000?" Right? That's like giving a whale a Tic Tac, right? It's like, what's that going to do? But
Right.
I thank God for the opportunity and received that award, and my life was changed from there.
That's awesome, man. And like you mentioned, like me personally, before high school or even before college, I didn't really know what HBCUs were, because I grew up a foreigner coming to America and kind of trying to figure out life in the US. And for me, like when I was introduced to it at our career fair, I think they had it at the high school, kind of bringing in colleges, and they're like, "Oh, hey, this is what's going on." It's like I grew up being hated on so much to where, like, I'm a little bit younger, like 96, I was 6 years old, but graduating 2008, looking at 2007, what colleges am I going to go to then? I was like, there was one HBCU school that came. I forget what the school was called, but you just get picked on so bad where everybody's just like, oh, it's not cool to be African then, but now everybody wants to be African and Wakanda and this,
Mhm.
that. And it's like, it's all love. It's all love.
Yeah, yeah.
But at that point, I was just a hurt little boy that was just like, I don't know. It's like I went through elementary school, middle school, high school, and now I see it's like hurt people. They don't intend to hurt you, but it's like you kind of like that vitriol comes out. But I say all that to say like being introduced to the fraternity back when you were still in high school and having that be an opportunity for you to actually have a pathway to college, seeing that no one before was in your life that had did that. Like what did that mean to you, like having men in your life, given that your father was taken away at an early age and now you
Yeah.
have your mom intentionally putting you in these environments that are positive. And you talk about growing up in Harlem, in the Bronx, and people may look at it being gentrified now, or people may look at it like in the 80s where it's like, I've heard stories, but I haven't personally lived it. But you lived it. You came a product of that, and you've been able to impact so many more people based on the things that were put in you. So, what was it about that exposure to the fraternity that led you to college and the men in your life that kind of brought you to that point and that has sustained you since then for the
Yeah,
greatest
yeah.
fraternity ever?
Yeah, I would say, well, the first exposure to fraternity, right, or brotherhood was
Mm,
the Boy Scouts of America. My
mm,
mom put me into scouting. I was a Cub Scout, worked my way up through the Cub Scout ranks, and then transitioned
nice.
to the Boy Scouts, and worked my way up to star rank, and then I got hit with the fumes, right? I got hit with the fumes. So some people say
What you mean?
perfume, some people say perfume, right, with the girls, and then the car fumes, right? But here's what's funny. I didn't have either. Well, I did have perfume, like I had girls, but
Mm,
I was more focused on, just like personal and professional growth, right? So I
gotcha.
ended up leaving scouting because I didn't have my eyes on the ball.
Mm,
I was distracted. I got hit with the shiny ball syndrome and didn't finish what I started. So that
gotcha.
was the first fraternity. And I often reference one of my scout leaders. His name was Edward Lehman. And
Mm,
Edward Lehman was a Jewish gentleman that lived in Riverdale, which is on the other side of the Bronx. It was more of an affluent neighborhood in the Bronx. It was still in the Bronx, but it was a different world from where I grew up, because I grew up in the South Bronx, not too far from Yankee Stadium, in a place called High Bridge.
mm,
And so Edward Lehman and his wife were instrumental in helping to develop us. Matter of fact, Mrs. Lehman, his wife, she worked at the school. She was a math teacher. I remember
mm.
she would always give us popcorn whenever we would come to her class. But if we acted up, she would take her hand and twist our ear and pull us close to her. That's back when teachers could lay hands on students. Right now, you lay hands on students, it's a wrap, right? But that was the first introduction to fraternity and those values. As a matter of fact, I still live by the Scout law, right? The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly,
Mm.
courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, right? So I still live
Yeah.
by that, right? I still live by the oath, right? Of
Yeah.
on my honor, I would do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight, right? So
Yeah.
those were values that were poured into me as if my father would have poured values in me. And so, there's values. We're all going to learn values, right? Some
Right.
values are going to lead to positive outcomes, and some values are going to lead to negative outcomes. But at the end of the day, we're all going to be exposed to values. And so it was a connection. And I don't recall how my mom learned about the Black College Tour, but we were able to attract that opportunity. And a lot of it comes through relationships. I tell people all the time now, you're one connection away from your next opportunity, whether it's a new job, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's, personal growth or professional development. You're one connection away from your next opportunity. And so I was one connection away from learning about the Black College Tour that the Men Over Omega Psi Phi put together. And so as a result of that exposure, not only did we go to the tour, but we were given weekly outlets to learn how to grow personally in preparation for college life. And while I did not pledge that fraternity, right, because they were not visible on my yard,
Mhm.
I did befriend a gentleman. Matter of fact, the very first gentleman that I met, the very first student that I met when I got on the campus of Virginia Union, he was an Alpha. And he was actually the president of the Student Government Association. And I remember him telling me when I met him, you know, he was looking through the box to find my folder. He couldn't find my folder, looked in another box, found my folder, and then it said that I was a presidential scholar. So I was literally able to go past go and collect my $200, right? For those of you who play Monopoly, right? So I didn't have to stand on these lines. I just went straight to the end, got my items, and was able to move into my dormitory. And so that was my first exposure to fraternity. However, I was not interested in becoming a member of a fraternity because I watched a movie called School Days. And I will encourage you all to watch School Days. It's an old school classic that was, well, it's an old school classic. Go watch that movie.
Yeah.
I said, I watched School Days. I saw how they got down with the fraternity, and I was not interested. But one connection, once again, one connection influenced my decision. As a matter of fact, it was a young man who was on that same Black college tour with me. His name is Andre Hudson. As a matter of fact, his name is Dr. Andre Hudson, right? Andre Hudson was the quietest dude on the tour. He didn't talk to anybody, right? When he came on campus, he started to blossom, start to grow. But in the spring of 1998, this scrawny little dude that's like a $138 soaking wet, he completed a process that was just he was the king of the hill, right? And when he finished his show, his probate show, he approached me. He put his fist in my chest, not hard. He didn't like cave my chest, and he just put his fist in my chest, and he asked me, "Are you next?" And I was like, I guess so, right? Because I looked at him and I looked at the guys at the fraternity. I said, hold up, this is cool. If this cat could do it, I know I could do it. And that began my journey. And in the spring of 2000, I became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity.
Man, that's awesome. And when you brought up the Boy Scout, I guess what would you call it? Creed?
It's the Scout law and the Scout oath.
The Scout law and the Scout oath. I don't think I've heard that since middle school, because I also joined Boy Scouts, and I think at some point, either late middle school or high school, I just couldn't keep going because I couldn't get there consistently. But it's one of those things that definitely sticks out, and good experiences really stand out. I know it's easy to remember the bad experiences, but like the significant experiences that make an impact in your life, or something like when you have a sense of it, you hear a word from it, it's like, wow, that did happen. Like I did get something good from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it comes from reflection. I think about experiences whenever I travel, when I'm just sitting home, or I may watch something or read something, a flash may come back to me, a memory may come back to me. And because I'm in the space that I'm in, and because I actually worked for the Boy Scouts of America, the local council in Richmond, those memories remain at the top of my mind, right? And so as a speaker, whenever I'm coming in to either talk to young people or to leaders, I bring those memories back, right? Because as you can tell, as most people can hear in me speaking, I lead with stories. That's what I was taught, going through the Game Changer speaker certification with ET, and the business of speaking and coaching with Kendall, right? Kendall Ficklin. Just being able to relate to people through story, because most people don't realize this, but facts tell, stories sell. And not that I'm selling myself, but I am looking to attract new relationships, new opportunities to connect with people through your platform that would allow for me to fulfill the mission that God has given me. And so as I reflect on those stories, and I'm able to maximize the moment and relive those moments, I'm able to connect to people that are like yourself, that say, yeah, I remember my scouting opportunity. I remember my Black college days, or I remember my fraternity moments. Those things I think about consistently, and I have to think about it, right? Because the ultimate is just keeping my mind on the negative. And I don't want to think about the negative. Most people focus on the negative and they get the negative. And when I think about my experience and I think about the positive, I get more positive. And so even when adversity hits, I realize what adversity actually is, right? Adversity is an asset. It's an opportunity for me to learn and grow and get to the other side so that I can not only receive a blessing, but then I can be a blessing for other people who are struggling and having a challenge with overcoming their own adversity. And for me, had I not had those gentlemen in scouting, those people at church, even people in my community, I would have been just like some of the guys that I ran with that got caught up in the streets,
Yeah.
jail, drugs, or death. Right.
Mhm.
And so I just thank God that I had the ability to be in the right places at the right time, to learn from the right people, to make the right decisions.
That's what's up. I see you got your bride over your left shoulder there, and
Yeah.
I'm guessing is she tied to the first relationship or the first person that gave you that your nickname YB?
No, actually, it's funny, man. She was a freshman when I was a sophomore. So she came to Virginia Union in '97 from New Jersey. I came to Union from the Bronx in '96.
Mhm.
We actually stayed in the same dormitory. We didn't date. We were dating we were in two different circles. I often joke when I tell the story about us
Mm.
that she was in the religious crew, I was in the heathen crew. And so we were in the same circle. God showed me my bride before she was my bride. As a matter of fact, my sophomore year, I was dating a young lady from Minnesota, and she had to transition from the room that she had to the room where my wife Janelle
Mhm.
was staying. And so when we tell the story, I often say, and my wife says it too, we do it for shock value, right? And I tell people, yeah, I used to date my wife's roommate. And so people look at me like, oh, you dog, like, how could you do that? I said, well, first of all, right? First of all, I wasn't dating my wife at the time, so I'm not a dog because I was dating her roommate. I can see how that sounds, and
Right, right.
that's why I said it, because I wanted to be shock value, right? But God showed me my wife before she became my wife, and so I actually ended up leaving school in 2000, at the end of 2000.
Mhm.
I was supposed to graduate May of 2000, but I was no closer to graduating at that time than I was my sophomore year. As a matter of fact, at the
Mhm.
end of my sophomore year, that presidential scholarship that I told you about,
Mhm.
yeah, I ended up giving it back.
Mhm.
I ended up giving it back. And some people, when I tell that story, they say, why the heck do you give a full ride back? Like, who does that, right? Well, I was supposed to maintain a 3.3 GPA.
Mhm.
And at the end of my sophomore year, I got a 3.275. Now, like you, I know you're thinking this, and I know some people that's listening, they're thinking this, but they could have rounded it up. And I was like, yeah, you could have rounded it up. But they was like, no, no, no. 3.3 is a 3.3. It's not a 3.275. And I used to say they took my scholarship, but that's because I wasn't taking responsibility.
Mhm.
Once I began to take responsibility, I would change the way that I promoted that event and say I gave the scholarship back. So
Yeah.
that caused me to go through a bit of a spiral. I had to take on student loans. I was blessed with some other scholarships to fill the gap.
Mhm.
But mentally, I was distraught, and so I wasn't really putting in the effort. I was still a social butterfly. I spent more
Mhm.
time in my boy Dre's room than I did in my room or in the library doing the work that I was supposed to do. So while
Right.
they were advancing in their academics, I was advancing in my social skills,
Yeah.
right?
You're networking.
Which that's right. I was the super networker, right? And then when I got into the fraternity, it was a wrap, right? But then at the end, December 7th, 2000, when I made the decision to withdraw from college, my life changed. I transitioned back to New York, live with my mom. But here's the blessing. My mom and I had been beefing for about 6 months, and we didn't talk for 6 months. But when I made the decision to transition to come home, I called her and she was like, come on home. And
Mhm.
so she gave me a safe haven for me to, for me to get my stuff together.
Yeah.
And so when I transitioned back at that time, because of my entry into the fraternity, I had access to a network, and one of those brothers reached out to me and offered me an opportunity to take a look at a business idea.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what the business idea consisted of. I just knew I wanted to connect with him. He was a
Mhm.
legend in our chapter, and so I wanted to connect with him. And so I went to his home, met his family, met his wife. I saw a speaker that was there. He had this whiteboard, and I was very curious. So I was like, okay. And I started sitting at the edge of my seat taking notes. And to make a long story short, I got introduced to the Amway business at the time. At that time, it was called Quickstar
Mhm.
in 2000, 2001.
Mhm.
And that began my entrepreneurial journey. As a matter of fact, my mom influenced me because she had a very a terrible accident that caused her to retire from the phone company, but got introduced to a financial services business that prompted her to not only enhance her professional development and personal development, but she got licensed in life and health
Mhm.
insurance. So she got into the insurance game, but
Mm.
she acquired all these different books,
Yeah.
these personal development books. So when I would come home during the school year, I would grab a couple books, take them with me, start reading them, and it
Mhm.
started to filter my mind. So when this opportunity came, I was ready simply because of what this gentleman said at the end of his presentation. He
Mhm.
listed 8 reasons why somebody would want to be in business for themselves. And the
Mhm.
last reason was to leave a legacy,
Mm.
to leave a legacy. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because remember, I grew up without my father. My father was murdered when I was 2. My father had his own enterprise, right?
Yeah.
But when I turned 18, I didn't get a knock at the door with my legacy. When
Right.
when
Right.
when I turned 21, I didn't get a package in the mail with my legacy. So what that told me was that I wasn't getting anything because my dad didn't prepare for me. But it hit me like a ton of bricks because I realized this was an opportunity for me to establish and develop a legacy for my children,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
so I ended up going back to school back in 2002, finished in 2004, had a speaking engagement for a nonprofit, and that's where I reconnected with my wife, Janelle. Right,
Gotcha.
my wife was on the committee. She was on the board for the nonprofit, and I was still building my Amway business. Right, matter of fact,
Mhm.
I got reintroduced to the Amway business, and I was prospecting her.
Mm.
Right, I use the line that most of us use in network marketing, multi-level marketing. Do you keep your options open to making more money outside of what you do? Right, that's another conversation for another day. But she was open,
Yeah.
and so we ended up meeting at her place of work. She works at the Federal Reserve. It was an executive lunch space and having lunch, and she was eating and I was not.
Mm.
Right? And so she asked me, "You're not going to eat today?" I said, "No, I'm fasting right now." I wasn't fasting. The truth was, I was broke. I
Mm.
had no money. Couldn't pay for no lunch. I ate the bread and I drank the water. I was broke, but I wasn't going to tell her that. I was hungry. And I
Mhm.
wasn't just hungry from a food perspective, like my belly was hitting my backbone. I was hungry for opportunity to make an impact so I can create legacy.
Right.
And so she became a part of my business world and then became a part of my life. And we've been married on going on 18 years. 2 beautiful daughters. My oldest daughter is 15 and my youngest daughter is 13. And so I am still in the process of building that legacy. And if I die today, the impact that I've made will be transferred to my children. And so
Yeah.
my goal is not only to have a good name, because think about where my father had a decent name in certain circles, depending on what circle you
Mm.
was in, right? But
Right.
for
Right.
me, my name is positive in all circles.
Mm.
So at least they could build on that to make something happen. But that's not enough for me. My
Yeah.
goal is to leave a financial legacy, a legacy of being an entrepreneur,
Mm.
developing that enterprise so that they could chart their own course. And yeah, so that's what I'm chasing after, that legacy. It's not so much chasing after. I understand that every day I have to work
Mm.
to build the legacy. And when it's my time to go, whatever I've built at that moment, my girls have the opportunity to continue building that if they choose to.
I like it. And I guess to your point, and I'm pretty sure you've recognized this too. You're your father's legacy, just
Yeah,
your being itself, and you
yeah,
pass that on to your daughters by helping bring them into this world. But
yeah.
having something additional to that, that's financial. It adds another tier to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when I tell these stories, most of it is like I said, is personal
Mm.
because of how I viewed it as I was going. But in no way, shape, or form am I looking to embarrass, my father or my father's family. I tell my story, my truth. What
Mm.
helped me to even do that was ET, right? When ET
Right.
came up with the secret to success, his people was like, "Why would you put your mom under the bus like that, right? Why would
Mm.
you do that?" When he came out with UOU, they said the same thing.
Yeah.
But the answer that he gave allowed for me to feel comfortable in doing what I'm doing. And that was, did it happen?
Mm.
Yes.
Right.
Is it your story? Yes. Then go tell your story. Right. No matter how people feel, that's your story. Other people's story is different. Other people's situation is different. But this is my story, and
Right.
I've become very comfortable with telling my story.
I agree. I think you're a very good storyteller. And to your point, I like the way you're precise with your language and your words, because something that I found recently is that in trying to be more open-minded or working at being more open,
Mhm.
and whether it be creative or seeing the world in a different way, or seeing the opportunity where it may look like, man, okay, I fell down, hurt my arm, what do I do now? Or versus
Yeah,
like, okay, I was in the process of doing something, this is a minor setback, arms
yeah,
heal, like things, bones break, they heal back, but it's like, it's not the end of the world. Like a small moment in time doesn't
yeah.
have to be months, years, and so on and so forth. And to your point, it's one thing that I've started to seek out is actually a YouTube channel that's called Film Courage. And they
Mhm,
have different people that go on there and they explain how they tell their stories.
mhm.
And for some reason, it just hit my mind differently to where I'm like, okay, that's why I like certain movies and I don't like
Yeah,
others. Where it's like, if you have a good display of the hero's journey, it's like, okay, you hit this beat, you hit this beat, maybe you get a little bit of surprise, but like the story is coherent. And if you're not working from a defeatist mindset and you're actually looking at the resources that you're developing, and like you said for yourself, having the setback from college, but being able to rekindle that relationship with your mom, and then having the Amway thing come up, whether it's multi-level marketing or not, it's like still the opportunity it gave you and the books and the resources she had, you
mhm.
taking the initiative to take those things on and to say, okay, let me be curious. Let me look at these things. Okay, I've been chopping it up with this person, spent more time over here, socializing over there, hanging out with the girls over there, talking to this person. But it's like, oh, okay, now this person's been in my life. I can communicate with them instead of just being like, oh, like, woe's me. Like I don't have a dollar to my name, but I don't have to make it known. And it's
Yeah.
like the way that I carry myself will put me in the position where I need to be come tomorrow. I think that that's something I appreciate about you.
Yeah, once again, it's about exposure, right? So the people that I was exposed to and the lessons that I learned from them allowed me to realize if it worked for them, it can
Mhm,
work for me, right? So the greatest lesson that I want to leave to people is that the relationships you build will give you exposure. Some exposure is negative, some exposure is positive, but the ones
mhm,
that are positive, you don't. So here's the thing: you don't have to go through certain experiences to learn from those experiences,
mhm,
right? There are borrowed experiences. That's why books are so important. That's why listening to audio is so important. That's why being around the right people is so important. Their experiences can be your experiences. You can borrow those experiences. Now, I'm not saying you fake it like I'm not gonna fake like I grew up in an abandoned. Well, I lived in abandoned buildings, ate out of trash cans, and was homeless like ET. I'm not gonna do that. But what I will do is I
mhm,
will share that story, give him the credit, but make sure I wrap around a principle that could relate. Or if I'm introducing him to an audience who's never heard of him before, like that
mhm,
experience, like I know what not to do to be homeless, to live in abandoned buildings and eat out of trash cans like ET did, right? I could tell young people what not to do so
mhm,
that they don't end up like that, right? Why? Because I was exposed to somebody who not only experienced it, but learned from the experience and was able to say, this is the reason why I ended up there, right? And so
mhm,
those shared experiences are very important. That's why relationships are key to success. That's why collaboration creates currency. And when I talk
mhm,
about currency, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about ideas. I'm talking about information. I'm talking about relationships, resources, right? Those things are currency. Even when you think about currency, you think about the word that's within currency, current. But what's
mhm,
what's what's a current, right? Water is current, right? You think about electricity, it's current, right? So it's
mhm.
a flow, right?
Yep.
It's a flow. And so the only way for you to create that currency is you have to have the right collaboration opportunities. And so I'm grateful for every experience that I've had in my life, from the time that I was able to remember
Mhm,
those experiences to now, and to the ones that are to come.
mhm. I like it. And fast forwarding a bit, so and again, when I've heard it said, like when people say, okay, it took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree, it's
Yeah,
like initially when I would hear it from ET, what for him it was 12 years. And I
yeah,
was like, are you telling me that you showed up for 12 years every time? But it's like, no, there's a break in there.
Yeah,
And then
there's a
like
break.
when you actually come back, the process speeds up because you have clarity about what you're
Absolutely.
there to do, and you get it
Absolutely.
in, you get it done, and you move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like this, okay, like just go hang out forever and ever and ever, because it's like money's being spent, debt's being
Yeah.
accrued. So you
Yeah.
don't have all the time in the world.
Oh yeah. No questions about it.
But to that point, so you graduate, was the influence for you to get your degree in finance, was that from the Boy Scouts and having that experience with the Jewish gentleman and his wife?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish that was the case. That wasn't the case. When
Mm,
I came to Union, when I signed the application, fill out the application, I put down accounting, right?
mm,
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I put down accounting because I was good with numbers, and
mm,
I figured I wanted to go into business. But when I got into my freshman orientation, there was a gentleman named Dr. Harry Bass, who was a professor in biology, who,
mm,
when I told him what I was striving to do, he says, business is saturated. We need more blacks in the sciences.
mm,
Now, because I was a first gen, college student, I didn't really have somebody to bounce that feedback off of. So
mm,
I changed my major to mathematics, not
mm.
knowing that math, once you get to a certain level in math, you stop using numbers. There's no numbers. There's no more numbers. And when we talk about numbers, no, we talking about theorems, theories, if this, then, like what? No,
Yeah.
I'm good. So at the end of my sophomore year, I changed my major, which contributed to the length of time that it was taking for me to go to school, because I had to
Mm,
take certain credits. I took education classes. I then changed my major to business administration,
mm,
with a concentration in finance and economics. And when I left school and decided to return, the
mm,
credits that I had and the classes that I've taken fit the concentration that I had. I just needed to take a couple classes,
mm,
and I knew I would be done in 2 years. Matter of fact, when I came back, I said, I'm done in 2 years. I'm out.
mm,
I'm not taking longer than 2 years. So that's what dictated my degree. If I had to do it all over again, if I had to do it all over again, I would have selected marketing and psychology,
mm.
because that's ultimately the space that I'm in right now. Like everything that I do is marketing.
Right.
Everything I do is psychology, even down to the words that I use. So you complimented me on my wordplay.
Mhm,
I have discovered the power of magnet language,
mm,
right? Magnet language, meaning you're using words that will draw people to you because they create mental pictures. Let me give you an example. If
mm.
I say, what comes to mind?
I missed it.
If I
So
say
what?
the word animal, what comes to mind?
Bear, lion, tiger,
Okay,
elephant.
good. So I'm thinking of a different animal, right?
Mhm,
So by using that word, we're not on the same page.
mhm.
But if I say the word Dalmatian, what comes to mind? What animal comes to mind?
Those little dogs with the spots.
Yeah, with the spots on it, right? So by me changing the words and saying a word that I know for a fact that if you know what a Dalmatian is,
Mhm,
you'll be able to see exactly what I'm saying. Well, that's psychology, right? That's psychology. So being able to use the words to create pictures, they actually allow for you to attract and draw the right people in. It's
mm.
important in sales.
Yeah.
When you're in sales, it's important not for you to continue to talk, but
Mhm,
to ask the questions that will lead to the answers. As a matter of fact, when I'm coaching my clients, one of the things that I tell them is that the answer to your question is in the question,
mm.
right? The answer to your question is in the question. So you have to ask the right question to get the right answer. The
Yeah.
challenge for most people is that they just want to attempt to sell their product or service, thinking that they're gonna, convince a person to buy. And people don't love to be sold, but they love to buy. They hate to
Mhm.
be sold,
Yeah.
but they love to buy. Well, they're going to buy what they want,
Mhm.
right? They're going to buy what they can afford, and they're going to
Right.
buy the thing that is going to make the biggest impact on them, whether it's their health, their wealth, their household, their family, their livelihood, whatever. They're going to buy what they want to buy. The key for us as sales professionals is to determine what the person wants,
Mhm.
present them that in the form of questions to determine if this is a good fit or a good time or a good price,
Mhm.
and to ask for the sale. And if they say no, there's only three reasons why a person won't buy. And I'm doing a little coaching right now, so I hope you don't mind, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
why I
you're
coach my
good.
clients, right? So
You're
there's
good.
three
You're good.
reasons why people don't buy. The number one reason is because you were a jerk.
Mm.
right? If you don't have personal development, you don't know how to talk to people. You show up late. You constantly cut people off, or you are dishonest. You know, nobody's going to do business with you. You know, my wife had a terrible experience yesterday at the car dealership, a Nissan dealership in Newport News. Yeah, I'm calling them out, right?
Put
Because
them on blast.
yeah, put them on blast, man, because they didn't handle their business properly. So my wife was like, "Good, all right, no problem," and she walked out. So
Mhm.
we done, right? But that's because the people were jerks,
Mhm.
right? So nobody's going to do business with a jerk. So
Yeah.
that's the first reason why people don't buy. The second reason why people don't buy is the perception that they cannot afford,
Mhm.
right? So if I present a coaching package to someone, you know, before I even tell them the price,
Mhm.
I'm determining whether or not they're in a place where they can afford it, right? But when I tell them the price, they're either going to say, "Ooh, I can do that," or they're going to say, "I can't do that." But
Mhm.
it's my job to show them how they can do that.
Mhm.
Right now, if they're not willing to go that path, right? Because I focus on adding value. I don't focus on price.
Mhm.
For example, my clients that work with me, I have a 90-day coaching package, and I tell them what that price is. And my goal is to help them use the coaching that I'm giving them to attract a certain number of clients that will help them not only recoup the money
Mhm.
that they've invested, but to make more of it.
Mhm.
Right. So I add value. So I'm not afraid to tell people what my price is, but I am looking for the person that understands that it's an investment. And
Mhm.
so it's my job that if it's a perception that they can afford and they keep that as the stumbling block, then they won't do business. And then the third reason why people don't buy is they just don't want what you're offering.
Mhm.
They don't have an interest in it. Like, so for example, if you attempted to sell me fried Brussels sprouts, I don't care what you put on it. I don't care if it's barbecue sauce, it could be Chick-fil-A sauce. I don't care what you put on it. I'm not eating it, and I'm definitely not buying it. So we just have to find what people want
Mhm.
at the price they can afford, and not be a jerk when we promote it. And that's literally the foundation for selling. And the challenge for most sales professionals is they don't talk to enough people. You know, I'm leveraging LinkedIn every single day to establish collaboration conversations, to promote what I do, identify what they do, and identify how we can collaborate. Well, those conversations lead to collaboration opportunities, and those collaboration opportunities lead to currency.
Man, that's amazing. And I think because you named yourself the LinkedIn locksmith, I think you're one of the reasons why I actually paid more attention to like LinkedIn and not looked at it as like another Facebook that's trying to be professional. Because
Yeah.
initially when I saw it, I was like, what's going on here? Like maybe some people are misusing it, but they're posting about like this, that, and the other. And I'm like, why don't you just put that on Facebook? This is
Yeah.
supposed to be this, but it's kind of taken a while to try and understand what's going on there, but also learning how to manage energy and say, okay, maybe I learn Instagram first, then I
Mhm.
can focus on YouTube, then I
Mhm.
can focus on Facebook, or then I can focus on LinkedIn. And instead of thinking that I constantly have to change the formula, like when people say, okay, you gotta get excited, let's be productive, let's set goals, let's do this. And like every day or every week, we on Sundays we have the M series meetup,
Mhm.
and we've been doing it, I think, over 5 years. And initially, when it was always like, okay, write down your goals for this. Okay, write down your goals for the quarter, write down. And it kind of takes me back to the Sunday calls we had with
Mhm.
BU back in the day, because I
Mhm.
also joined in 2016. And it was
Mhm.
that is like this mastermind where you would come together. And the beauty of it, to your point, is asking those probing questions and asking the right questions, because it's is a challenge when you life isn't going the way that you want it to go,
Mhm.
and you're being challenged because you can't really identify what's not working in your favor, and you see other people winning and saying that they're getting things to go that the way they want. It's not always rosy on top, or the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but it's sometimes perceived to look that way, because I found for myself I didn't have a lot of personal validation and value that I saw in me. So I would always look out to get it from other people. So it'd be like, okay, get advice from here, use this site, use this site, use this site. I just started going through my bookmarks and cleaning, and it's like, how many different things are there for creating a podcast? And it's like I only need one. If I'm consistent with it, if it's working, make it work. And let's not try to do everybody's strategy. But I really like what you said with those three things, where if this is your goal, here are the potential obstacles and ways that you can overcome them.
Yeah, yeah, because we have to know the struggle, right? You know, if you're gonna partake a project, yeah, you know the benefits, but you also have to know the struggle as well, so you're prepared for it. You know, ET says it's not the adversity that kills you, it's not the adversity that breaks you, it's that you wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah.
And so we have to be prepared for it, you know. Now, I just want to go back. You mentioned that I named myself the LinkedIn locksmith. I'm not that smart, right? I didn't, you know, like I said, it took me 8 years to finish a 4-year degree, right? So I'm not that smart. But thank God for the access to the Breathe You community, because of the people I was able to connect with. A gentleman named David Shands, right? You know, I'm sure you remember David Shands, right? Sleepers for Suckers. And so I remember David had a speaking engagement to a group of us in Breathe You, and he asked the question, who is your locksmith? Right? Who is your locksmith? Right? And so he was going around the room and he was asking us, you know, who is your locksmith, or what are you a locksmith of? And I mentioned LinkedIn, and he gave me that name on the spot, LinkedIn locksmith. But the beautiful thing about it was, the day before, I met with him and one of his teammates to go through strategies on how to leverage LinkedIn. And as a result of that experience, and as a result of his talk, you know, he put that out there. He was able to put the two together. And so I took that and ran with it. David is a phenomenal marketer. And so, you know, I said, well, listen, if he's saying it, then I'm going to say it, and let's see what the world says. And so now the world says LinkedIn locksmith. And so, you know, I literally have people that reach out to me and say, whenever I think about LinkedIn, I think about you, because you're the LinkedIn locksmith. Or whenever I think about connections, I think about you, YBConnects, right? And so now, my desire is to brand myself that whenever someone hears currency, they think about me, right? So my birthday, December 16th, 2022, I launched my second book, Collaboration Creates Currency, the Blueprint for Visibility, Credibility, and Profitability. And I did that because I knew that I wanted to get to a place where I began to transcend LinkedIn, because at any moment in time, LinkedIn can go down. You know, Instagram has gone down a couple of times. Twitter has changed tremendously. It's no longer Tweety Bird, it's an X, right? And Thread is taking its lunch, right? Thread is taking its lunch. So at any moment in time, the platform can go away. But my goal is to not be tied to a platform, but to be tied to a movement. And so Collaboration Creates Currency has evolved from a book, an idea, to a movement, right? Where it was inspired by ET, because of something he told us years ago, that his success didn't come from the work he did alone, but from the collaborations that he established. And so, you know, I had collaborated with another BU member by the name of Darren Palmer. He owns a company called Self-Publish in 30 Days, and he offered me an opportunity to become president of sales for his company. And that was a major collaboration. And I began to launch my own podcast series under his umbrella called YB's Collaboration Corner. Why? Because I knew I was in the process of developing a collaborative book project, and I wanted to prospect individuals who had yet to become published authors, who may see this opportunity as a way for them to increase their visibility, credibility, and profitability. And so as a result, Marshall Fox became one of the first people to jump on the project. Deborah Delgado, who's a leadership, a coach, a career coach out of New York, she jumped on the project. Sherrod Ledet, who wasn't in BU, but he was a part of Extreme Execution. When I had an opportunity to speak to them, he became a part of the project. And then S. Elliott Brooks III, a pastor who graduated from Oakwood, the same school that ET graduated from, he jumped on the project. So all five of us make up the authors in Collaboration Creates Currency, where we share our story and some insights on how collaboration has created currency for us. And the value for the reader is that they can take that and identify, number one, who should they collaborate with? Right? Who should they connect to create a collaboration opportunity that could lead to currency? And then to help people see that currency was not just money, but it's ideas, information, relationships, spirit, energy, right? And so now I'm using that as the platform by which to impact entrepreneurs all around the country, because there's something coming. You
Yeah.
know, the economists are saying that there's something coming. You know, if we look at history, you know, we know 100 years ago we had the Roaring '20s, and then the '30s hit, and most people were destitute. Something's coming. And
Yeah.
so what I want to leave with you and your listeners is the importance of finding collaborations, right? Finding those relationships that will lead to currency and building them up now. Don't
Right.
wait until you hit adversity and you want to start connecting with people. That's when you're desperate. You
Yeah.
never want to connect with people when you're desperate. You want to connect with people when you're at a position of strength.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you do that is by making sure that you have maximum clarity, right? You understand who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, who you serve, and what results you get for the people you serve. And having that maximum clarity is critical. But
Mm-hmm.
then you want to have confidence, right? The ability to know that you can do what you say you can do, right? Some people talk mess, right? They say they can do this work, but they can't really do it. Why? Because they lack confidence and clarity. But from that confidence and clarity, you have the ability to communicate. You know, I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that you have, you know, the ability to develop a magnet language, right? Where your focus is on attracting people, not just, you know, pushing people away or thinking that you're going to sell people. No, you want to give people something to buy through your communication.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things, clarity, confidence, and communication, then leads to your ability to make connections,
Mm-hmm.
right? You and I,
Right.
we connected in BU years ago, and we still maintain that connection, right?
Right. Right.
But as a result of that connection, you invited me on your podcast, and now we have a what? A collaboration opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And collaboration, like I said, doesn't always lead to money. I mean, excuse me, it doesn't mean money.
Right.
It doesn't, like, you didn't give me anything to come on your podcast. I didn't give you anything to come on your podcast, but it's creating value for both of us,
Yeah.
right? And so from there, we create currency. But here's the most important part of all those things is our conviction,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you know that you know that you know that what you stand on and what you do is going to make an impact. And so I want to get so many people to take those 7 C's and internalize it so that they can not only make an impact in their space, but now that impact is multiplied throughout the state of Virginia, throughout the East Coast, throughout the country, throughout the world. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm saying that collaboration creates currency is a movement.
That's awesome. Do you have the book with you?
I do, man. You know me, I stay ready. You know what I'm saying? What ET say, stay ready. So this is a copy of my book, Collaboration Creates Currency, the
I like
blueprint for visibility, credibility, and profitability. Those who notice the color scheme and are familiar with the Divine Nine see that black and gold. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just a reflection of my fraternity. So everything I do is on purpose. I never do anything, like I said, I never do anything by happenstance. So if you see my colors here, you see the colors of my book, you can walk around and just simply ask me, are you an alpha? I
Mm-hmm.
said, no question. What other fraternity would I be a part of, right? So at the end of the day, you know, I'm very intentional. Once again, if I had to do it all over again to go to college, it would be
Yeah.
psychology and marketing.
Man, no love for the sciences, no love for biology.
Well, here's the beautiful thing about it. Networking is a science,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Networking is a science. Relationship building is a science. It's an art and a science,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, math, yes. You talk about STEM, right?
Mm-hmm.
Science is chemistry, right? So we have
Yep.
personal chemistry, right?
Yep. Yep.
Technology, we leverage LinkedIn, right?
Yes, sir.
Engineering, we engineering opportunities for people to develop financial resources. And math, but we got to know how to count the money, right? So
Yep.
STEM, I'm in STEM. And even if you want to add STEAM to that, you put the art in there. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, the networking is an art.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm a mad scientist at I'm a mad scientist at heart, right? I facilitate connections that lead to individuals' desired outcomes.
For sure. And definitely, I think what's beautiful about the collaboration piece is that hearing what the gentleman said, it's like you don't stay stuck on that because in collaborating, you know, other Black scientists like myself,
Yeah,
like Nehemiah Mabry, like
yeah,
many other, like Ricky Venters. It's like
yeah,
those are 3 engineers right there, and a
yeah,
gentleman that's coming up soon, Chris Phelps, that I met through
yeah,
EL Butler. And
yeah,
just to your point, like even writing the book, like you mentioned, you brought 5 people together to where each person does their thing. And I
yeah.
think you may have done that with your first book, right? With Chip.
My first book is called Speak Up: The Ultimate Guide to Dominate in the Speaking Industry. It was a
Mm,
book that I joined It was another collaboration project that was put together by the Black Speakers Network. Shout out to Brian J. Olds, who's the founder and chief executive officer of the Black Speakers Network. And in that book, it featured 30 other speakers, including myself, and Les Brown, Dr. George C. Frazier. Phenomenal book. Is a resource for speakers who have a desire to build a speaking business. And so imagine, you talk about science, right? So imagine you have this this box, right? And inside this box are pieces. But inside the box is the manual to put the pieces together. Now, some people just start building, just start putting pieces together. They don't even look at the manual. Well, Speak Up is the manual for speakers who want to dominate in the speaking industry. And so I'm blessed to be a part of that book project. My chapter focuses on how speakers can enhance their network and net worth using LinkedIn. And it's actually applicable to all professionals, but specifically to speakers. As a matter of fact, I'm known in these streets as the #1 LinkedIn coach for speakers. And so for those who have a desire to leverage the LinkedIn platform so that they can attract new speaking opportunities and build, collaborative relationships that lead to currency, I make myself available. And so, those 2 books are a staple of my brand. And I'm looking forward to book number 3, which will be a solo project, and then future books from there.
That's awesome. I thought you co-authored with Chip Baker, because I thought
I didn't know.
Gotcha.
I didn't co-author with Chip Baker. Chip is a phenomenal guy. As a matter of fact, I remember opening several doors for Chip, facilitating connections for him to have guests on his podcast so that I can add value to the people in my network so they can increase their visibility. So I've yet to collaborate with Chip on a book, but that might be coming down the line.
Gotcha. My mistake on that, but I think he's spoken well of you, and it's good to see that we run in common circles, and that having multiple people to point to that are making impact individually in their communities, and they're making those connections and collaborations. It's a lot easier to live in the world and to really strive to do something great, because there are plenty of examples. Like, you can turn down the radio, you can switch off the TV and connect with actual people.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And how can people get in touch with you, given what you do, what you can offer, getting a copy of your book and other things like that may be coming out 2023, 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. The best platform is my platform, which is YBConnects.com. That's YBConnects.com, right? Some people might spell it WHYBEE, but as you can see on my shirt, for those who are watching the video, for those who are listening, Y, the letter Y, letter B, CONNECTS.com. And you can learn more about me, as well as to get your copies of both books, Collaboration Creates Currency, as well as Speak Up. And then obviously LinkedIn is the best platform that I love to connect with people on via social. You can find me at Rob YB YoungBlood on the LinkedIn platform. And just a quick tip, for those of you who decide to use LinkedIn to connect with me, please send a personalized note and let me know that you heard me on this podcast, so that I can easily accept you into my network. For some people, they just hit the follow button or the connect button and don't send a personalized message. And so I have to vet those people. But for those people who listen and they decide to connect with me on LinkedIn, make sure you send a personalized note and let me know you heard me here on this podcast.
I love that. And that's another thing I learned from you. It's learning to vet people and to be intentional about why somebody's connecting with you, because everybody's Facebook friends, everybody's following everybody, but it's that if you do a self audit and you look at where your attention is and really ask, okay, how can I help you? How can we connect? I think that's a lot of my reasoning for doing the podcast, is to be intentional about speaking to people and not simply having contacts in my phone that I never reach out to or never make a connection to.
Yeah, we have to be very intentional. And so the fact that I'm here with you was intentional. Like I said, we go way back, and this is our opportunity to strengthen that relationship. Who knows what the future may hold for us, but I know for a fact that we're going to be on a trajectory to help each other increase our visibility, credibility, and profitability. So I appreciate, the opportunity to be on your platform, and I pray that the content that was shared will add value not only to your listeners, but to those who are going to be new to your platform. So once again, I appreciate the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Blessings to you.
Yes, sir.